Do you remember me, human? You saved my life many years ago. Elias Ward had faced many strange moments since humanity stepped into the wider galaxy, but nothing prepared him for the summons that arrived that morning. The message was short, formal, and terrifying. By decree of her Imperial Radiance, Queen Velthara, Elias Ward was ordered to present himself at the inner throne chamber without delay. No explanation, no context, no reassurance. Elias stood in his small quarters aboard the diplomatic station and stared at the glowing seal for a long moment. Around him, the quiet hum of alien technology filled the air. Outside the viewport, the Queen's homeworld hung massive and beautiful, its oceans glowing faintly blue, its continents wrapped in silver clouds. Humans were guests here, tolerated, observed, never fully trusted, and Elias was very aware of how fragile his position truly was. He took a slow breath and adjusted his plain uniform. Unlike the elaborate robes worn by most alien officials, Elias wore simple clothing, designed to show humility rather than status. It had served him well over the years. He had learned early that humans survived in the galaxy not by power but by restraint. As he walked through the long corridors toward the throne chamber, guards fell into step beside him. Tall, armored figures with shimmering skin and glowing eyes. They did not speak. They did not threaten. That silence was worse than any weapon. Elias replayed every recent interaction in his mind, every report he had filed, every conversation he had held with the Queen's daughter years ago during the rescue mission. Nothing stood out as dangerous. Nothing that deserved a direct summons from the most powerful ruler in this sector of space. Still, his heart beat faster with every step. The throne chamber doors opened without sound. The room beyond was vast, carved from living crystal and metal grown rather than forged. Light flowed along the walls like liquid starlight. At the far end, elevated above all others, sat Queen Velthara. She was larger than most of her kind, her presence filling the chamber even in stillness. Her crown was not gold or jewels, but a living construct that pulsed softly, responding to her thoughts. Her eyes, ancient and sharp, fixed on Elias the moment he entered. Every instinct in Elias screamed at him to kneel. He did. The guard stepped back, leaving him alone before the throne. "Rise, human Elias Ward," the Queen said. Her voice was calm, controlled, and layered with a power that did not need to shout. Elias stood slowly, keeping his gaze respectful but not lowered enough to seem afraid. Humans had learned that balance the hard way. "You have served this empire for many cycles," the Queen continued. "You have mediated disputes, prevented conflicts, and acted as a bridge between species that barely trust one another." "Yes, your radiance," Elias replied simply. "Tell me," she said, leaning forward slightly, "do humans often understand the consequences of their kindness?" The question caught him off guard. Elias hesitated. "We try to," he said carefully, "but often no. We help because it feels right, not because we expect anything in return." A long silence followed. The Queen's gaze did not soften. If anything, it sharpened. "That," she said, "is why you are here." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. She gestured and the chamber shifted. A section of the floor became transparent, revealing a lower garden bathed in warm light. Alien plants grew in slow, graceful patterns, their leaves glowing softly. Within that garden, movement caught his eye. Small figures, children. At first, Elias thought his mind was playing tricks on him. His breath caught and his heart skipped. The children were laughing, chasing one another through the glowing plants. They were clearly not human. Their skin shimmered faintly, their ears and eyes shaped differently. But something about them made Elias' stomach twist. Their expressions, the way they laughed, the way they moved, they looked familiar, too familiar. "My daughter returned from her expedition 3 cycles ago," the Queen said quietly. "She brought with her 2 children." Elias swallowed. "They are healthy," the Queen continued. "Intelligent, emotionally expressive beyond our norms, and they possess traits that do not belong to my people." She turned her gaze back to him. "They look like you human." The words hit Elias like a physical blow. His heart almost stopped. Your radiance, I don't understand," Elias said, though some part of him already feared the truth. "You were part of a rescue operation 17 standard cycles ago," the Queen said, "a mission near the human frontier. My daughter's vessel was damaged. Her crew was lost. You were the only one who reached her in time." Images flooded Elias' memory, a shattered ship drifting near a dying star, emergency lights flickering. A wounded alien noblewoman barely conscious, her life signs unstable. Elias remembered carrying her through smoke and fire, refusing to abandon her even when his own escape window was closing. "I did what any human would do," Elias said quietly. "I helped her survive." "You stayed with her," the Queen said. "For days, you shared your rations. Your warmth, your oxygen, you spoke to her when she could not respond." Elias nodded slowly. "She was alone. I didn't want her to die thinking no one cared." The Queen's fingers tightened on the arm of her throne. "Our scientists believed such prolonged exposure impossible," she said. "They believed emotional bonding had no biological effect." Her eyes flicked toward the children again. "They were wrong." Elias felt dizzy. "I never," he began, then stopped. The words felt heavy, dangerous. "I never intended to cause this." The Queen studied him, not with anger, but with something far more unsettling. Confusion, fear, wonder. "You changed her," Vilthara said. "Not through force, not through technology, but through presence." Elias looked at the children again. One of them stopped running and turned toward the glass as if sensing him. Their eyes widened. A small hand lifted and pressed against the transparent floor. Elias' chest tightened painfully. The child smiled. It was not an alien smile. It was human. Something inside Elias broke open, quiet and overwhelming. "I don't know what you expect of me," Elias said softly, "but I would never harm them. If my existence threatens them or your empire, I will leave. I will disappear." The Queen rose from her throne. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. "You misunderstand," she said, descending the steps slowly. "I did not summon you to judge you." She stopped a few steps away from him. "I summoned you because my empire stands at the edge of something it does not understand. And you, human Elias Ward, are at the center of it." Elias met her gaze, his fear steady but his resolve firm. "Then tell me how I can help," he said. The Queen looked once more at her grandchildren playing below. "That," she replied, "is what frightens me most." The lights dimmed slightly as distant alarms echoed faintly through the palace. Somewhere beyond the chamber, whispers were already spreading. The galaxy did not yet know what had been born within the Queen's bloodline. But it would. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. The silence after the Queen's last words felt heavy, as if the throne chamber itself was waiting to see what Elias would do next. He remained standing where he was, hands relaxed at his sides, even though every instinct told him to step back. The Queen was close now, close enough that he could see the fine patterns in her shimmering skin and the faint glow beneath it, like slow-moving stars. "You may look at them more closely," Queen Vilthara said at last. The transparent floor shifted. A smooth platform rose silently from the garden below, lifting the two children upward until they stood only a few steps away from Elias. Soft light surrounded them, warm and gentle, meant to keep them calm. Elias' breath caught. Up close, the resemblance was impossible to deny. Their faces held alien structure, but their eyes were unmistakably human. Not just the shape, but the curiosity inside them. The way they studied him openly, without fear, the smaller child tilted their head. "Grandmother," the child said in a soft, melodic voice, "this one feels familiar." Elias' chest tightened painfully. The Queen's expression flickered just for a moment. "That is Elias Ward," she replied. "A human." The taller child took a hesitant step forward. "He smells like warmth," the child said thoughtfully. Several advisors standing at the edges of the chamber stiffened. Murmurs rippled through the room. Elias slowly knelt, lowering himself to the children's height. He kept his movements careful, controlled. "Hello," he said gently. "I'm Elias." The smaller child smiled again. "I am Lyra," they said. "This is Kale." Kale stared at Elias with open wonder. "You are not afraid," Kale said. Elias gave a small smile. "I am," he admitted, "but sometimes being afraid doesn't mean you should run." The children seemed to consider this deeply. Behind them, tension rose like a storm. Court scientists stepped forward, their voices sharp with urgency. "Your Radiance, this interaction is unwise. Emotional imprinting may deepen instability." "Instability?" another official snapped. "This is contamination. Human genetic presence within the royal line threatens the balance of the empire." Elias rose slowly and turned to face them. "If you're looking for someone to blame," he said calmly, "blame me." Gasps echoed through the chamber. "I will accept exile," Elias continued. "Punishment, silence, whatever you decide, but do not turn these children into symbols of fear. They didn't choose this." The Queen raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. You speak as though this is already decided, she said coolly. It is not. She turned toward the advisors. You see danger, I see truth unfolding. One scientist hesitated. Your radiance, the scans do not lie. These children carry human adaptive traits, emotional bonding, stress resilience, pain tolerance beyond our norms. Another added, if revealed to the wider galaxy, this will change how every species views humanity and us. The Queen's gaze hardened. Perhaps that is overdue. Elias felt the weight of countless eyes on him. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Answers, she said, and honesty. She gestured, and the chamber shifted again. A series of holographic images filled the air, footage from 17 cycles ago. The rescue. Elias watched himself on the recording, tired, injured, stubbornly refusing to leave the damaged vessel. He saw himself tearing his uniform to bind wounds, sharing oxygen, speaking softly to the unconscious alien woman in the darkness. I don't know if you can hear me, his recorded voice said, shaking but steady. But you're not alone, I'm here, just hold on. The footage ended. A hush fell over the chamber. That moment, the Queen said quietly, altered more than survival. Elias swallowed. I didn't know, he said. Humans, we form bonds easily. It's how we endure. I never imagined it could change biology. Nor did we, the Queen replied. The children shifted closer to Elias without realizing it. Their shoulders brushed his arm. Kale looked up at him. When you are near, Kale said slowly, the noise inside me becomes quiet. Elias closed his eyes briefly. The Queen exhaled slowly. That was when the alarms sounded again, louder this time. An aide rushed forward. Your Radiance, the Council has been alerted. They are demanding immediate access to the children. Elias tensed. Council? He asked. The Galactic Council, the Queen said. They fear what they do not control. Her gaze turned sharp. And they will not accept this easily. The chamber doors opened, and several council representatives entered, tall, rigid figures draped in authority and suspicion. One stepped forward. Queen Velthara, by interstellar law, the presence of hybrid influence within a ruling bloodline must be investigated. Elias stepped forward before the Queen could respond. Investigation often becomes erasure, he said calmly. I won't allow that. The council member sneered. You have no authority here, human. The Queen's voice cut through the tension like steel. He has my attention. The council froze. These children are under my protection, she continued. Any action against them is an action against my throne. The representatives exchanged uneasy glances. You risk war, one warned. The Queen stepped forward, her presence filling the room. Then understand this, she said. If war comes, it will not be because of these children. It will be because you chose fear over understanding. Elias felt something shift in the room, not just politically, but emotionally. The children clutched his hands now instinctively. Lyra whispered, do not let them take us. Elias knelt again, meeting their eyes. I won't, he said softly. I promise. The promise echoed louder than any weapon. The Queen watched him closely, something unreadable in her gaze. You may stay, she said finally. Not as a subject, not as a prisoner. She placed a hand over her chest in a gesture rarely seen. You will stay as kin. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The council erupted in protest, but the Queen silenced them with a glance. Elias felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders. I will not fail them, he said simply. The Queen turned toward the stars beyond the chamber walls. The galaxy will learn, she said, that humanity does not conquer through force. Her eyes reflected distant light. They endure, they connect, and now they belong. Outside the palace, ships began to gather. Messages spread faster than light. Whispers turned into fear, then curiosity. And at the center of it all stood a human who had only ever tried to save one life, now holding the hands of two children who would change the fate of empires. The palace did not sleep that cycle. Light moved constantly through its halls as messengers hurried from chamber to chamber, carrying words that could no longer be taken back. Beyond the planet's atmosphere, ships from many systems began to arrive, their presence silent but heavy with meaning. What had once been a private discovery was now a truth the galaxy could sense, even if it did not yet fully understand it. Elias remained in the inner wing of the palace, a place few non-royals had ever been allowed to stay. The rooms were calm, filled with soft light and warm air meant to ease the minds of young ones. Lyra and Kale sat near him on a low platform, building simple shapes from glowing blocks that shifted color when touched. They liked sitting close to him. Too close, some advisors thought, but the queen had overruled them. Elias watched the children quietly. He noticed small things that unsettled him in ways he could not explain. When Kale became frustrated, he clenched his fists the same way Elias had as a child. When Lyra laughed, it was sudden and bright, the sound cutting through tension like a blade of light. They were not human, but they were not entirely alien either. "You are worried," Lyra said suddenly, looking up at him. Elias blinked. "Is it that obvious?" She nodded seriously. "Your thoughts are loud," he smiled faintly. "I'll try to keep them quieter." Kale crawled closer. "Will they take us away?" Elias' smile faded. He placed a hand gently on Kale's shoulder. "No," he said firmly. "No one is taking you anywhere." The truth was, he did not know how long that promise could hold. Across the palace, Queen Vilthara stood before a projection of the Galactic Council. The figures flickered with static, their faces sharp with anger and fear. "This is unacceptable," one counselor snapped. "You have allowed uncontrolled human influence into your bloodline." Vilthara stood tall, unyielding. "Influence already exists throughout the galaxy," she replied. "You simply never noticed it because it did not wear a crown." Another counselor leaned forward. "Those children represent a biological shift, if such compatibility spreads." "It already has," the queen interrupted calmly. "Through trade, through diplomacy, through survival." Silence followed. "You fear humanity," she continued. "Not because they are strong, but because they change what they touch." The council disconnected without agreement. Vilthara remained still long after the projection faded. She felt something she had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. Later, she visited the children's wing alone. Elias rose when she entered, but she gestured for him to remain seated. "They sleep?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Elias replied. "It took them a while, too many voices today." She looked at the resting forms of her grandchildren, their chests rising and falling in steady rhythm. "They calm faster when you are near," she observed. Elias nodded. "Humans evolved that way. We survive by leaning on each other." The queen studied him. "That trait has altered them," she said. "Our scientists confirm it. Their neural patterns respond to proximity, trust, and emotional safety." She turned to face him fully. "You did not intend this, but intention does not change consequence." "I know," Elias said. "If there's a way to undo it." "There is not," she said simply, "and I would not choose it even if there were." Elias looked surprised. "They are stronger than our kind," the queen continued. "Not physically, but internally. They recover from stress, they adapt, they hope." She paused. "Hope is dangerous." Elias met her gaze. "It's also why we keep going." The queen said nothing more, but something shifted between them. The next cycle brought escalation. A fleet from the council entered orbit without permission. Their message was clear: surrender the children for protective custody. The palace went into defensive readiness. Elias stood beside the queen in the command chamber as tactical projections filled the air. "They won't attack," one general insisted. "Not openly." "They don't need to," another replied. "They will isolate us, sanctions, trade blocks." Elias listened quietly, then spoke. "They're afraid of what they can't predict," he said. "That's human too, by the way." Several officers glanced at him. "If they push this too far," Elias continued, "they risk proving exactly why these children matter." The queen considered his words. "Explain." "Humans respond badly to injustice," Elias said. "Not with immediate violence, but with stubborn resistance. We endure, we remember." A message arrived then, urgent, encrypted. One of the palace aides turned pale. "Your Radiance, there has been an attempt." "Attempt?" the queen demanded. "Remote bioscan override," the aide said. "Someone tried to access the children's genetic data directly." Elias' blood ran cold. "From where?" The aide swallowed. "Council servers." The room erupted in anger. "They crossed the line," the queen said, her voice low and dangerous. Elias stepped forward. "Let me speak to them." Several voices protested at once. "You are human," one general snapped. "They won't listen." Elias shook his head. "They will because I'm human." The queen studied him carefully. "If you do this, you make yourself a target." "I already am," Elias replied. After a long moment, she nodded. The transmission connected. Elias stood alone before the council projection, hands clasped calmly behind his back. "You fear what you see," he said simply. "I understand that," one counselor scoffed. "You manipulated a royal bloodline." Elias shook his head. "No, I saved a life." Another voice rose. "Those children threaten galactic stability." Elias met their gaze without anger. So did humans when we first left our world. You survived that. Silence followed. You want control, Elias continued. We want safety for them. He gestured slightly. If you take them, you turn curiosity into fear, fear into resistance. A counselor leaned forward. And if we do nothing? Then you learn, Elias said. Like we did. The transmission ended abruptly. No resolution, but no immediate attack either. That night, Kale woke from a nightmare. Elias was there instantly, sitting beside the bed, speaking softly until the child calmed. They were shouting, Kale whispered. Loud thoughts. Elias swallowed. It's going to be okay. Will you stay? Kale asked. Yes, Elias said without hesitation. As long as you need. From the doorway, Queen Velthara watched silently. In that quiet moment, she understood something that centuries of rule had never taught her. Power did not come from command. It came from presence. And the galaxy was beginning to learn that lesson the hard way. The tension that wrapped the palace did not fade with time. It thickened, cycle by cycle, like a storm that refused to break. Ships still filled the orbit above the Queen's world, their engines silent, their weapons powered but not fired. It was a waiting game, and everyone felt it. Elias felt it most when he watched Lyra and Kale. They tried to keep their routines normal. They played, learned, laughed, and rested. But they were more aware now. They noticed guarded glances. They sensed fear that did not belong to them. Sometimes they paused in the middle of play and looked up as if listening to something far away. Elias stayed close. He did not hover, but he did not leave either. His presence grounded them, and he knew it. He had never imagined that simply being near could matter so much. One quiet moment, as they sat together watching soft lights drift across the ceiling, Lyra spoke. Why are they angry? She asked. Elias considered his words carefully. Because they are afraid of change, he said. Change feels like losing control, Kale frowned. But we are not hurting anyone. No, Elias agreed. You're not. Lyra leaned against him. Then why must we prove we belong? The question cut deep. Elias did not answer right away. Sometimes, he said slowly, the ones who belong the most are the ones questioned the hardest. Across the palace, Queen Velthara faced pressure like she had never known before. The council's demands grew sharper. They wanted access. Tests, relocation, oversight. Each word carried the same meaning beneath it. Control. Her advisors argued endlessly. Some urged compromise, others urged strength. A few spoke quietly of removing the children from public knowledge forever. Velthara listened to them all. Then she dismissed them. Alone in her private chamber, she stood before a vast window that looked out at the stars. She had ruled through war, famine, rebellion, and disaster. She had never doubted herself until now, not because she feared losing power, but because she feared failing her grandchildren. A message request appeared, marked with the highest urgency. Elias Ward, she accepted. He appeared on the projection, calm but clearly strained. Your Radiance, he said. The council is moving faster than we thought. I know, she replied. They are preparing a formal intervention. Elias nodded. Then it's time we stop reacting. She raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? I have a truth, Elias said, and it's stronger than threats. Velthara studied him. Speak. They want to see these children as a danger, Elias said. Let them see what they actually are. Silence followed. You would expose them, the Queen said. Yes, Elias replied. On our terms. Velthara's gaze hardened. The galaxy does not respond kindly to vulnerability. No, Elias agreed, but it remembers courage. The Queen ended the transmission without answering. That same cycle, alarms echoed through the palace, not of attack but of arrival. The Galactic Council had assembled in full. The largest chamber on the planet filled with delegates from dozens of species. The air buzzed with tension, whispers, and barely hidden fear. Guards lined every wall. Weapons were visible but restrained. At the center stood a raised platform. Queen Velthara entered first, her presence commanding silence. She took her place without ceremony. Then Elias walked in. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. He wore no armor. No symbols of rank, only his simple human uniform. Finally, Lyra and Kale entered, walking beside him. The sound in the chamber died completely. They did not hide. They did not shrink. They looked around with open eyes. This assembly is called to address a perceived threat, the Queen said, her voice echoing. Before judgment is passed, you will witness truth. She gestured to Elias. He stepped forward. These children exist because I chose compassion over survival, Elias said clearly. I did not plan it. I did not seek power. I only refused to abandon someone who needed help. He looked around the chamber. You fear what they represent, he continued. But they represent something you already live with. He gestured to the delegates. Trade, alliances. Shared science, shared space. You have all changed each other. A counselor interrupted sharply. They are biologically different. Yes, Elias said. So are you. Lyra stepped forward then, her small voice carrying through the chamber in a way that made many delegates lean closer. We hear your fear, she said. It is loud, Kale added, but fear hurts more when you hold it alone. A ripple passed through the room, confusion, discomfort, something deeper. They are children, Elias said softly. Not weapons, not symbols, just children. One delegate rose. What if others like them are born? Elias met their gaze. Then the galaxy becomes a little less alone. The chamber fell silent. Queen Vilthara stood. I will not surrender my grandchildren, she said. Nor will I hide them. If this galaxy cannot endure two children who embody connection, then it is weaker than it claims. Tension snapped. A group of council enforcers moved suddenly, their intention clear. Before weapons could rise, Elias stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between the children and the threat. I won't move, he said calmly. The chamber froze. Queen Vilthara felt something ancient and powerful settle into her core. This ends now, she said. She raised her hand. All systems in the chamber shut down instantly. Weapons powered off. Shields dropped. Technology fell silent. Only voices remained. You wanted to test humanity, she said to the council. Observe it, she gestured to Elias. He stands unarmed before you, she continued, not demanding authority, not threatening force, only refusing to abandon those who trust him. Her eyes burned. That is strength. No one moved. Slowly, one delegate lowered their head, then another. The council's authority fractured not through violence but through realization. When the session ended, there was no vote, no declaration of punishment, only a quiet withdrawal. Later, back in the children's wing, Elias finally sat down, exhaustion catching up to him. Kale hugged him tightly. You did not run. Elias smiled weakly. I told you I wouldn't. Lyra looked at Queen Vilthara, who stood nearby. Grandmother, she said, the loud fear is quieter now. The queen nodded slowly. That night, as the palace lights dimmed and the ships in orbit began to disperse, Queen Vilthara stood alone once more at the window. She finally understood. Humanity's greatest weapon was not force. It was the refusal to let go. And the galaxy had just felt its weight. The palace felt different after the council withdrew. It was not quieter. Ships still came and went. Advisors still argued. Messages still arrived from across the galaxy, but the sharp edge of fear had dulled. What remained was uncertainty mixed with something rare in imperial halls. Reflection. Elias noticed it in small ways. Guards nodded to him now, not out of duty but respect. Servants no longer avoided Lyra and Kale's gaze. Some even smiled, unsure why they felt the urge. The children noticed it too. The air feels lighter, Kale said one morning as he sat beside Elias, watching the sun rise over the crystal towers of the capital. That happens sometimes, Elias replied, after people stop shouting inside themselves. Lyra tilted her head. Will it stay this way? Elias looked at the horizon. Change never stays still, but courage has a way of leaving marks. The queen summoned Elias later that cycle. Not to the throne chamber, but to a smaller room overlooking a public plaza. Below them, citizens gathered, alien families, traders, scholars. Life continued, unaware that history had quietly shifted. You stood where emperors hesitate, Queen Vilthara said. Elias shook his head. I stood where a human would. She studied him carefully. That distinction matters. She turned toward the window. Messages have arrived from several systems. They request dialogue, cultural exchange, study not of the children but of humanity. Elias felt a slow exhale leave his chest. That's good. It is dangerous, the queen corrected, but growth often is. She faced him fully. You have a choice. Elias stiffened slightly. I'm listening. You may return to human space, she said. Your people will welcome you as a symbol. Elias thought of Earth, of blue skies and gravity that felt like home. And the other choice, he asked. You remain, the queen said, not as an envoy, not as a guest. Her voice lowered. As family. The word carried weight. Elias did not answer right away. That evening he sat with Lyra and Kale beneath the soft glow of the garden lights. The plants pulsed gently, responding to their presence. Will you leave us? Kale asked quietly. Elias felt his heart tighten. I was given a choice, he said honestly. Lyra took his hand. Choices mean you belong in more than one place. Elias smiled sadly. That's true, Kale frowned, but you promised. I promised I wouldn't abandon you, Elias said, and I won't. The children relaxed, leaning against him. From the shadows, Queen Velthara watched. She had ruled through command and obedience all her life, yet here was loyalty born without order. She made her decision. The announcement was broadcast across the empire the next cycle. Queen Velthara stood before her people, her image carried to every screen, every station, every ship. Today, she said, I acknowledge a truth long ignored. She gestured, and Elias stepped into view with Lyra and Kale beside him. These children are heirs of two legacies, the Queen continued. They are not mistakes, they are not threats. Her voice grew stronger. They are bridges, a murmur spread. Humanity has not conquered us, she said. It has connected us. She placed a hand over her chest. Elias Ward is recognized as kin of this throne. Across the galaxy, reactions exploded. Fear, debate, wonder on Earth, leaders stared in disbelief. A human had not been crowned, he had been accepted. Days turned into weeks, weeks into cycles. Delegations arrived not with demands but questions. Scientists asked about emotional resilience. Philosophers asked about empathy. Military leaders asked quietly why humans fought so fiercely when protecting others. Elias answered what he could. We are fragile, he told them. That's why we hold on so hard. Lyra and Kale grew under watchful eyes, not hidden away but taught openly. They learned history from both worlds. They learned languages, customs, and stories, and they learned something else. When tension rose, they reached out to Elias, to each other, to anyone willing to listen. Conflicts eased around them, not vanished, but softened. One evening, as stars filled the sky, Elias stood again at the window where the Queen once doubted herself. You changed the galaxy, he said quietly. Velthara shook her head. No, you revealed it, she paused. Do you regret staying? Elias thought of laughter in the gardens, of small hands holding his, of a galaxy that felt slightly less cold. No, he said. For the first time, I feel like humanity didn't just survive out here. She nodded. You belong. Far beyond the palace, news spread from system to system. Humans were no longer just deathworlders. They were caretakers, protectors, builders of bonds no one could measure. And somewhere in the vast silence of space, two children laughed, unaware that their existence had rewritten what strength truly meant. The galaxy would remember this moment, not as the day an empire fell, but as the day it learned why humanity endured.